Right. So again, pleasant good afternoon. We are just about to start, right? So I think where we left it, just to recap, and I'll just recap in about 1 minute time, that in the process industry field, there are advanced techniques then, right, that are used for risk assessments. Why should the techniques be advanced? Anybody remember why would you want to use an advanced technique instead of doing a normal 5 by 5 matrix? Any answers you remember for that? Why do an advanced risk assessment? Why isn't the normal 5 by 5 good enough?
It doesn't give you the full coverage of what's going on. You need a very accurate depiction of the hazards.
Right, very good, right? And of course, I mean that's a very good answer. And thanks for the one in the chat, right? I wouldn't read all of them. It's a higher accuracy, very good here, Quincy. Right. And so let's go straight into them because there's a couple of them. Um, I have my book, but I don't know if to slow myself down in trying to find the page because remember, the same thing is on the slide. So we can just take it from the slide. Because if I go to compare page by page, that is a bit tedious, right? And so I will do it probably for one of them, but let's try to get some more behind us because there's a couple of techniques, right? So one of the techniques is called the Swiss cheese model. And this was developed by a psychologist. It's often referred to as the reasons model, but reason, Reason, is actually the person's surname, right? So when they say the reasons model, it's not like reasoning, it's actually the person's surname, right? So he came up with this theory, and just to make life here short for you, he described an accident or the causes of an accident as having what is called active and latent sort of barriers then, or probably failures, right? And the active one is the one that you see, right? So the eye injury is the one that you see, but the latent failures is what you don't see, like what is behind the scenes then, like poor working conditions, management, not doing what they should be doing, and the worker wasn't trained. So anything that is beyond the first one, which leads to the injury, are called latent failures. But what he did, he would have said it was like Swiss cheese, right? Which is like what you get. I mean, you get them in Trinidad too, pepper jack, sort of variety and stuff, right?
Dry
But
nuts?
but
Is it our
those
dryer?
those those slices then, right, have like a hole in them. And what he was saying was that for the accident to happen, all the things that could go wrong have to go wrong. It's kind of like Final Destination, if you all saw that movie, right? So like with the person not wearing PPE or eye protection, that had to go together with the person not being supervised, right? So like there was no supervisor there at that point in time. And then there's a lot of other things that had to line up, like the movie Final Destination, so the supervisor wasn't there and like no one, so another cause could have been no one took up the role and of supervision. That worker could have been a young worker and that the person wasn't trained, right, to put on the safety glasses. And it may have been to that really and truly they have never really handled anything corrosive, but on this occasion, the chemical that they are dealing with is a corrosive chemical. So everything had to line up for the accident to happen, right? But the more control you put in place then, right? The more somebody was trained, then the holes that would fall out of alignment. And if it falls out of alignment, then the accident would not happen, right? Um, anyway, I should probably try to avoid saying things like what I think could come for exam because remember we are not NEBOSH. Like my thing is say you ought to study everything, right? And so this is a good theory though. Hopefully you made a little bit of notes on it, right? I don't know if it did. The thing that you see like the accident is called an active failure. And everything that you don't see behind the scenes here, right? These here are said to be latent failures, and they could range from organizational failures, working condition failures, lack of supervision, environmental conditions, anything that's behind the scene, right? But like that movie Final Destination, I'm sure you all saw it, everything have to sort of line up. The more controls you put in place, the less chance the accident would actually happen, right? Um, so yeah, I try not to say too much about passive today, right? I'll just tell you learn what you have to learn, right? So if measures are put in place, management systems, information, instruction, training, and supervision, safe systems of work, safe tools and equipment, safe work environment, and accidents should be prevented. Theoretically, the more barriers are in place, then the less likely that they will all fail, or these all fail simultaneously. However, sometimes a systemic issue will affect all barriers, thereby rendering them ineffective. For example, a general lack of adherence to safety procedures, resulting in a vessel headspace being ruptured. So the vessel blood, right, will undermine many of the other barriers you have, like probably a gauge or a sprinkler system. Maybe the whole thing blow out, but then, it's probably that bad anyway, right? So the concept of hazard realization, this occurs when two or more of the controlling barriers fail simultaneously and the harm is now evident. This can result in a loss of containment, leading to ignition, leading to fires, explosion, everything that is bad, right? So we can leave that one there, right? So that's this one here. So risk management too, we getting into some of the bigger ones. So these refer to the approaches used to predict and prevent risk from being realized. Most are very accurate, notwithstanding human limitations. Errors and violations made by humans, of course, right? Errors and violations are made by people. A violation is not made by a piece of equipment, unless if it is computer program, right? But errors and violations are made by people, right? And can provide a means of intervening in the process, either in the design or modification, as well as process stages to control the hazard realization. They, however, require a greater a greater deal of technical skill and competence. These advanced techniques, right? So to get the advanced technique, they require a greater deal of technical skill and competence, right? So the first thing we're going to look at, we mentioned this word last week, is something called a hazard and operability study, first used by the Imperial Chemical, I think, Institute in 1960. A hazard and operability Hazops study is a structured and systematic examination of a planned or existing process or operation in order to identify and evaluate problems that may be represented or may represent risk to personnel or equipment or prevent efficient operation. It will identify deviation from the design intent, determine the causes, and recommend a solution. It is a qualitative process. And no, last week we mentioned that of all the techniques, this is how we end last week. We ended with, of all the techniques, some of them are still qualitative, some of them are quantitative. The quantitative ones are the better ones, right? So what is a hazard? A team of experts on various disciplines are involved. However, a team leader is usually chosen. It is best used at the design stage in a process, but can be used for plan modification. Team members can include anybody and everybody, right? Secretary, a scribe, a design engineer, mechanical engineer, electrical instrument engineer, operation representative, process engineer, safety specialist, and it could be anybody else that is a part of that team, right? I'll explain it when I finish reading, right? So the hazard, the scope must be defined, such as the part of the process, plant operation, and will be studied, right? The parameter must be chosen. Process parameters can include flow, pressure, temperature, level, viscosity, composition, pH. For example, temperature of sulfuric acid in a pipe is more than 20 degrees Celsius, right? So guide words must be chosen. Typical guide words include words like no, more, less, as well as part of, reverse, other than. The guide words have certain meanings. For example, no would mean a negation of the design intent. More means a quantitative increase, less means a quantitative decrease. Reverse means that it's in the opposite logical direction of which it was intended to be, as well as could be a qualitative increase, part of a qualitative decrease, other than complete substitution, right? Now, let's go again. And so the format of a Hazop is given by the acronym GDPCA. The team considers the risk that the consequences severity will occur from a proposed deviation and can assign a risk ranking number from a suitable risk matrix. So Hazop procedure example, process plan scope, right? The scope chosen here is the cooling of sulfuric acid in a storage tank at 20 degrees Celsius. The parameter chosen is temperature. The guide word is more, which means that they're going to consider what if the temperature goes up. They could also consider things like flow and stuff as well. What are the possible causes? Valve failure, trip sensor, the valve close. What are the consequences? The temperature goes above 20 degrees, resulting in increased pressure inside the storage tank and subsequent uncontrolled release of the vapor, right? So let's pause a bit. There's a picture of one here, right? Well, actually I worked out one. Hazop. And there's actually one in your book as well, but we're going to do one, right? So let's take it back at it up. If you want, hopefully you all have your little pencils and pens. You can make some notes as we go along, right? So hazard, like I said, it stands for hazard and operability study. Taking it back from scratch, a team will consider what it is they're going to look at, and they use the acronym GDPC. And now what it really means, if I can probably put mine a little bit lower down, or should I say further back, right? So what that really means, the GDPCA is actually the heading of the table, right? So I could probably write here if you want to kind of write down one, right? Let me take the whiteboard. I told you the whiteboard that Zoom has created now is a bit problematic to operate. I'm not even seeing it, come to think of it, right? But the acronym then, GDPCA, is really the heading of the hazard, right? If you look at what I have on the other page, let's take a look at that one. Instead of I giving myself some double work to do, right? If you look at the table here, you'll see that the guide word then, right? Well, this one doesn't have well, I didn't have it in the guide word, right? So G is the guide word. This should have actually been the heading, but this is one from a company, right? I did not make up this one. People are free to kind of tweak things in it, right? But in theory, if you look at the one in the book, the first thing is guide word. This is the guide word here, of course, right? The next column should have been deviation, but they put it two in one, right? And then the next to the GDP, C is possible causes, GDP, GDP, C is consequences, and A is the action plan for improvement. So they have safeguard here, right? So this is one from Massey. People are free to kind of tweak them up a little bit how they want to. But in theory, I mean, the theory suggests, if you look at the one in the book, those of us in the book, you'll see what I'm talking about. It sticks to the pattern then. It sticks to the formula, right? That you look at what you want to look at. If it's temperature you want to look at, right? That's called the parameter. And the next thing there is your guide words. Then is the deviation, right? So I was gonna write that out for you all, and we can have a look at one of that. It's just that the space is limited. So I would just use the letters, right? So G, right? So G is the guide word. D is the deviation. P is the possible causes of the deviation. The other C is the consequences of the deviation, and the A is the action plan for improvement. So now typical, if you look at the one in the book follows that format. Most people put parameter to the top though, right? The one in the book, they put parameter in the row itself, which is not too bad, right? But parameter supposed to be to the top. The parameter is like what you're studying, right? What are you going to study? Are you going to study temperature? Are you going to study pressure, right? So you can write out this word for me, parameter, right? And we'll put temperature here. We'll stick to the example that I gave, which was like the cooling of sulfuric acid, right? Or something somebody making, some product is being made, and the sulfuric acid have to be at 20 degrees Celsius. So that's the design intent, right? And what the team is going to do, the team is going to suggest, remember this is like a risk assessment, right? In reality, remember risk assessment, like when you say likelihood by consequences, right? Which is like what you have here. It doesn't mean the accident has happened. It means it could happen, right? It didn't mean the accident has happened as yet. So in reality, the temperature has not increased, but they are thinking about what if, right? A hazard study is like a what if study. A risk assessment is like a what if study, right? So if you use the word more, the guide word more, what the team would suggest, they will suggest what happens if the temperature goes up, right? So the deviation will be the temperature will be greater than 20 degrees Celsius. Right? You can write out one of them, greater than 20 degrees Celsius, because the design condition is supposed to be 20 degrees Celsius, right? So this is GREE, right? So greater than 20 degrees Celsius. So that is the deviation. And then you list then the possible causes. The possible causes can be like a valve failure, um, some maybe some sort of sensor you had to regulate the temperature field. And of course, human error, right? So the possible, but a hazard is a RA. That's why you have this table here, right? So it lists all the possible causes of the temperature going more than 20. But please remember, in reality, it has not gone more than 20. It is a risk assessment. So we are thinking about what if it goes more than 20, right? Then we look at the consequences. The consequences if the temperature goes more than 20. I'll just put it could be like a fire. It doesn't have to be because this could be a chemical process. Just to make it a simple example, right? So the consequences could be a fire. And of course, if you are making, if this is a product, if this was some sort of soft drink, some sort of chemical for sale then, right? And the design temperature of that oil was 20, but it goes more than that. But then you'll have product wastage. You're going to waste that product because if it is a drink, nobody would want to purchase it. It would actually fail quality tests, right? So if the temperature goes beyond, so that's the possible consequences, right? It'd be a waste product. Please write these things better than a WA, you know, okay, like you waste the product then, right? So product wastage would have been what should have been there, right? And then again, if this was an industry, the increase in temperature could have been like an explosion. It all depends on what process you're looking at, right? So it could have been an explosion, right? Would have been the consequences of the temperature going up. The A is the action plan for improvement. So then you fill out here like what action plans you have for improvement, right? So if one of the possible cause was like a valve failure, what's an action to prevent the valve from failing?
Monitoring.
Okay, so monitoring inspection, very good. All right, and so you fill that out. Now, here the thing, NEBOSH is not giving you a hazard to do, but to be competent and making sure you understand how to do one. They will not ask you to do one unless you go to level 6, right? But in reality, that's what it is then, right? So if you say a possible cause is human failure, what could be an action? If you say like the technician was supposed to turn off the valve manually, right? Every at a preset time. So maybe after an hour and a half. But the technician got called and we at an emergency home or something, right? So what's an action plan to prevent that?
Automatic shut off timer.
Automatic shut-offs, proper training, and additional technician, right? So Hazop is not hard. Like I said, if you look at the one, you look at the one in the book, it's the same kind of format: guide, word, deviation, possible cause, consequences, action plan. And like it is predictive, right? Remember, this is predictive. In reality, there is no fire, there is no product wastage, but the team is considered what if the temperature goes up to 20, right? And then if they wanted to say less, if they wanted to say like we're gonna consider, that's another rule. Remember these things on a rule? How it's drawn here, like you can see it here then, right? This is a rule. But like if they want to consider the temperature going down, well, then they'll consider the word less. Less means a decrease in temperature. And they go through the whole thing again. They consider if it's less, what's the deviation? The deviation is the temperature is not going to be 20. What's the possible cause? The cause could be the same: valve failure, human error, loss of power, right? Those sort of things could be the, never do it in this class. Oh yes, Tobago. Yeah. Yeah. So the possible causes could be the same thing. And then the consequences of temperature going down. Now it mightn't be a fire because the temperature has gone down, but it may still be product wastage. It may be that you have to dump all of that chemical because nobody wants it, right? And the action plan for improvement could be things like sensors, proper supervision, um, shut a valve if the temperature is going down, something that will sort of automatically shut off the system anyway, right? So you understand a hazard is it is a risk assessment, but it's more refined and it goes with some different headings, right? It follows the parameter. This is supposed to be parameter of your PRA, right? The parameter is whatever you're studying. So if you didn't want to study temperature on another sheet of paper, the team want to consider corrosion. Whatever they're studying is called the parameter. If they want to study pressure, if they want to study flow, I think I had that, right? They want to study, well, maybe you have reactants mixing, right, to make soft drink, right? So you have some reactants here mixing with another tank here, right? So you want to consider, like what happens if you have like less flow. Let's say this is water and this is some sort of fruit juice or something, right? To make some sort of drink, some sort of juice. I just put fruit there, right? But what if the flow isn't the same? And then for them, they will get the parameter, which is the flow rate. The flow rate may be like 20 liters a minute. And it's the same thing they will consider on the same table more. So what if the flow rate increases to 30? What's going to happen? The drink is going to be too strong. It's going to be too concentrated, right? What is going to be if it's less? It's going to be too diluted. And so the thing goes then, right? So a Hazops is not a bad study. It's a nice study. For you all, I guess if I could bring it back to your level 4 now, like I said, NEBOSH is not asking you to physically do one. But so I'll just show some of the questions I've seen before. You can take a note of it, right? Because this is done in a Hazops when you turn that there, the next thing is done, right? So some of the questions we have seen is, what is the meaning of the term Hazops? Right? So what is the meaning of Hazops? And that's easy: hazard and operability study. To me, the most common question though is they ask like, which technique uses, and then they give you some of these here. Which technique uses guide words, deviation, parameters? They'll give you about 3. Which technique uses guide words, deviation, possible causes, or one of those words, right? From GDPCA. And then you have your 4 answers. It's going to be Hazops, hazards, ETAs, FTAs, right? And if you learn, the point is that you have to learn GDPCA, right? I had a student, if I told you this story, could that be about 2 weeks ago? I had a student who told me the person passed long time, right? The person passed and stuff. And they said, they came by to sign up for another course. And they said, sir, I still remember GDPCA, but I don't know what it stands for, right? So this was about 2 years. The person remembered the acronym. They said, I remember that thing you were talking about, GDPCA, but I can't remember what it stands for, right? So if you have your exam, you got to remember what it stands for, because that's what they bring, right? The only other hazard question they could ask is, which technique is used at the design stage, right? And that was in the note. A Hazops is used in the design, it's best used at the design stage. What does that mean? It's best used before an accident then, because it is a risk assessment. Like when you put in the operation, the plant, when you build all these things, it's best you consider what if, right? So a hazard, but if you want to take that down, it's best used in the design stage. It was only PowerPoint, is just to get it, just to get this slide to go back to it. But you can write it down, right? A hazard is used in the design stage. You see that here, right? Design intent, right? It is best used at the design stage, right? So that could be the only possible question, right? That they ask. Which technique is best used at the design stage for modification, right? Like if something was to change, the answer would be a hazard. But you should learn GDPCE, right? Before I forget, let me do something I wanted to do. I don't know if these persons are here though. Is Carrion Green and Pooja in the, I think I just saw Pooja, but is Carrion Green in the class this evening? Carrion Green, Carrion Green. Anyway, but Carrion is not here, but we are recording, so hopefully she'll get it on the record, right? Um, so Pooja, right? I think Pooja is here. So did you get your results on the last course that you did? I'm not too sure if you have the mic and stuff available. Right. So shouting out to Pooja there if you have gotten, the results. So just a long story short,
Yes,
NEBOSH,
sir. I got my results. I
right.
passed.
Very good, yes, right? So NEBOSH laboratory results for the April batch of students came out, I think, last night, right? So I have two students in the process safety class here. Karian is not in the live. Karian Green and Pooja would have passed successfully, right? With a full pass. So I don't know if you are where you are at, if you could put your hands together for them, because everything really in NEBOSH is commendable, right? And remember, that's the level 3. That is the tougher one, right? Level 4, folks, isn't that tough, right? Level 4 is not a whole set of writing. You all know, those of us who went through that, we have some students here who did the exam and they are awaiting results as well. But you all may have written at another time, like Oliver, Adisa, you all wrote the month after the April batch, right? So congratulations, folks, because it's not all the time we get to say things like that. And when I saw it last night, I said, I have to shout you out because if anything is hard, it's level 3. Level 4 is not that hard. Level 6 is not that hard. You all know that level 6 is hard, but it's not that hard. Why level 6 is not hard? Because you have 10 days to do the exam, right? These students, Pooja and Kerryan, and those who went through the exam too, like Adisa, but they all wrote it another time. Adisa and Oliver, Mary, and possibly if I have any other students here, right? Dervin and whatever, you would have gone through it another time. Anissa is also here, but Anissa would have passed. She wasn't in this year, and Anissa would have passed last year, right? So congrats to you all. Remember, that is a globally recognized cert. Nobody can take it from you. Once you have it for life. You can work anywhere in the world with it. It's not the T-Bosh from Guyana. It's not Cipriani in Trinidad. This is the real NEBOSH, right? And you all are doing the real NEBOSH level 4 course, right? That we are in now anyway. So hats off to you all. In the week when I get some time, I normally ask my students for a picture. We normally do something on Facebook, like a boosted ad or something, just saying congratulations to you all anyway. But it wasn't 2 people. I just saying we have 2 in this class that was successful in the exam, right? Most of the students passed. I saw one person, which I wouldn't talk too much on, but this is important too. I saw one person got caught in plagiarism, right? Yeah, so remember the day for your exam too. Remember, you're sitting by your computer. NEBOSH is going to be looking at you. We went through this before, so I don't waste too much time on it, right? just do your work. Just sit there and do your work. Don't have your phone in your hand, right? Just do your work. Just be fair. People do it. Look at Nisa. Not Anissa, sorry. You all are now doing this one anyway. But I had a guy called Jeffrey, right? We had students in the last batch. They have no issues. Once you be honest, don't have your book or nothing like that, you wouldn't get catch, right? So remember, NEBOSH is something real, it's not imaginary. It's a real place. Otherwise, the certificates would have been coming from heaven or probably hell, but it's a real place, right? So your certs come from a real place. Remember, they are real people. They would be looking at you all for this process exam. Just study your work, do the thing, and like everybody else who pass, you wouldn't have an issue. You wouldn't have no issues, right? If you decide to do your own thing and have your book in your hand and a phone hiding under the desk or something, they will catch you. They don't make joke, right? That software, right? The student they caught, I didn't even know that. I learned something this week. I learned something this week. I am kind of old fashioned, as some of you all may know, but I'm old fashioned. I won't say old fashioned, but then I came up anyway, 80s, 90s, right? So I think that's part of your DNA, right? So it's not that, but I learned something this week because that student used an AI tool. I didn't even know what that was. I had no idea what that was, right? An AI tool. I found out what it was, and I don't want to say it because if I say it, I don't want people to confuse it. Right? So I found out what it was. Was very good though. Was very good. That AI writing tool was very good. I would use it to be honest, but I would use it in a smart way. I wouldn't use the AI writing tool and copy everything it said. Right? This is for level 3, right? And you all probably passed level 3, right? But I could have used an AI writing tool and not copy how it was on the AI writing tool, but that person copied off just like that, copied and pasted. And they caught him, right? Apparently they asked software to pick up AI writing tool and NEBOSH have them, right? Anyway, the point is everybody passed, one person got caught, and that's just how it is. Life goes on. He would have to write it over. It's not as if it's the end of the world, right? Every time you fall, you get back up again. So, he will have to have another go at it. All right. You want to look at your book a bit? You want to have a look at your textbook? It's kind of reading in San Fernando here. So the light kind of went down, even though I have light. I'm sure you see the light, but it kind of got a little bit dark. So let me put on my glasses a bit, right? Um, so if you have your book, I'll just show it on screen. Now, this is not that you're not seeing it. This is the same thing. I just making mention of it. You'd have seen it in your textbook there. The same thing. Don't say you don't have your book because of the heading right there. Guide word, deviation, causes, consequences, action. Nothing I didn't touch in class, right? So, don't let that be a sticking point. Learn the thing the way you see it, right? It then going to change in the slide. It wouldn't change in the textbook. And the questions wouldn't, the question may change, but at least the most common questions is like, what is the meaning of hazard? Which technique uses guide words, deviation, whatever, right? Which technique is best at the design stage? And again, that's the Hazops. Let's go to the next one. Tell me if you have any questions on this one. So what you have to learn GDPCE. For now, you don't have to do a Hazops, like construct one, but you have to kind of understand, like it is proactive. The accident hasn't happened, but we're still trying to study what could happen anyway, right? So if you have any questions on this one is done. I'm taking off the writing and the drawings on the left-hand side. I don't know if I have a question here lined up as yet, because I wanted to do a couple more of that, right? So we can go to this one. Hazards is just on the other page of your book. Hazard is on one side and hazard is on the other side. Let me read it for you, right? So a hazard study, which is essentially a structured brainstorming technique, is carried out by a team of competent personnel from a mixture of discipline and led by a person who is experienced in the hazard technique. But that just sounds like a hazard. That sounds like a hazard, right? But it's different. I'll tell you how it's different in the end. Each area of the installation is considered against a checklist of hazards where it is agreed that a hazard exists in a particular area. The risk presented by the hazard is considered, and all possible means of either eliminating the hazard or controlling the risk and or the necessity for further study are noted in a hazard worksheet. So they actually have one in your book. So I don't know if you want to look at that or look at this. So there's some similarities between a hazard and a hazard, which is both of them uses a team of specialists, right? Both of them could use actually guide words, even though the guide words is different. If you watch here, right, utilizes guide words for the hazard, but there are some hazards that use a guide word system as well. So the main difference in them, let me just try to break down the main difference in them. The main difference is that a hazard is like a checklist. So we just need to consider, well, what is a checklist now, right? So a checklist, you all may have seen it like for housekeeping. So with a checklist, the hazards are already there, right? Like poor housekeeping, condition of the floor, and they have like some columns to tick then. They have like good, bad, fair, right? So when you consider it like that, whether a hazard is not a hazard, because what they said, if you go back and you read this one, each area of the installation is considered against a checklist of hazards. So it could have been said that it was a pre-existing checklist then. A hazard was never pre-existed, right? So a hazard is like a checklist, right? Where you check the conditions, you're already having it, already having it then like temperature, right? And I just put a letter T, right? But you'll have here the temperature will be good, fair, within specification, right? And when you go to the installation, you just check in what is already on the hazard, right? You have things like valve, right? The condition being good, the condition being fair, replace, right? Corrosion on your tank, that is put in the letter C. So you understand, in terms of the structure of it, even though a team may have come together to design it, and they may have used some guide words and stuff initially, it comes down to a checklist approach, right? So this could be another question, right? So what you need to learn is what you have here. A hazard uses a checklist approach, right? It's already prefabricated, and the person just has to go around and tick it. If they have a hazard though, if it was ticked, then they said where it is agreed that a hazard exists in a particular area, the risk presented by the hazard is considered. So then this would not be fed into like a risk assessment, like the likelihood and severity thing. They'll consider what's the likelihood, what's the consequences once they check yes for that particular hazard, right? So see if you catch the difference in them, right? So a hazard uses a brainstorming approach, uses guide words. You kind of have to consider what if the temperature goes up, what if the temperature comes down. A hazard may start off like that, but then at the end of it, it ends up in a checklist. So that's a good way to differentiate between a hazard and a hazard. A hazard is a existing, prefabricated, pre-developed checklist that you go around with, and then you check out for the hazards based on what the team would have already decided to be the hazard. Temperature, valve, inspection of valve condition, CDF for corrosion, right? They would have already decided those are the hazards that they are going to look at, right? If you understand that, tell me if you get it a bit. And I think that one is also done. That's the main difference in them. I'm trying today not to say what coming for exam because, there is no guarantee that what we say coming could come. So I just teach it, right? I just teach it, right? And you all learn your work how you're supposed to learn it. I'm moving on. Next one, Bowtie analysis, right? Going straight into it, and I'll kind of these have some past papers on them. As I mentioned, some has some questions say all before. Not too much questions here, but then past might dictate future, right? So learn it anyway. All right, Bowtie analysis, right? So the Bowtie method is a risk evaluation method that can be used to analyze and demonstrate causal relationship in high-risk scenarios. The method takes its name from the shape of the diagram that you create, which looks like a man's bow tie. I'll show you one just now. I'll show you how to draw it, right? The bow tie gives a visual summary of all plausible accident scenarios that could exist around a certain hazard. Second, right? Now, why do you say second? Because a bow tie is two pieces. There's a left hand and a right hand side, right? So when they say second, this is the other side of it on the right hand side. Second, by identifying control measures, the bow tie displays what the company does to control those scenarios. The left-hand side of the bow tie describes how the event and circumstances can release a hazard, right? Let's just go to the right-hand side represents a scenario that may develop from the undesired event, the consequences, dependent upon the effectiveness of systems and activities. The right-hand side is more reactive than the left-hand side, right? So the bow tie has the advantage of being a clear graphical representation of what can sometimes be a complex safety system. You have, like I said, to the bow tie, part of it is proactive, part of it is reactive. Active barriers are put in place to prevent the hazard from causing the top event from occurring. Reactive barriers are put in place to reduce the consequences. Each barrier relies on one or more activities carried out by the organization, such as design, engineering, or operation, to ensure its presence and effectiveness. Barriers can be hard, such as fire, explosion, wall design, or soft, such as procedures and individual competence, right? So this is a look at it. I'll do one for you just now. The thing in the middle is called the top event, and this is what you're trying to prevent. If it is an explosion, there is some sort of contamination of a product, and you have two sides to the bow tie. We're going to explain that just now to you, right? Same thing here. The one in the middle is called the top event, which is like a fire, explosion. You have two sides of the bow tie, the left-hand side and the right-hand side, right? So I don't know if you want to try to draw one. Again, I'm going to struggle with this zoom marker they have here, right? But let's try to draw one. So the top event is what you have in the middle. Let me try to fit mine somewhere here, right? So the top event is what is in the middle of the bow tie. So let's just say this is fire, right? And we'll stick to something simple, even though this is process safety. It could be fire in a tank or fire in a pipeline or something, right? But again, fire may be something that we could all kind of relate to, right? So how they start to draw the bow tie is like a straight line. It should be straight, of course, right? So you're coming down like this. And that should probably be more in the middle. And then you go up with another line like that, right? So when you look at it, if you were to connect them then, right? They look like the shape of a bow tie, right? But I'll tell you what the line means just now, right? And you can draw more than two lines, but for simplicity's sake, we will just draw two lines. You see how this one have four lines? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can draw more than two lines anyway. But I guess you get the idea of the bow tie if you connect here anyway, right? So that's the bow tie. So the two sides should be the same size, right? That's how mine has drawn, looks different. You have the left-hand side and you have the right-hand side bow tie, right? So the left-hand side, the right-hand side. So the left-hand side, if you take it notes, it's proactive. The left-hand side is kind of positive there. The left-hand side considers what the hazards from a fire. Now again, just like what we just did, right? Like what could cause the fire, right? But when I say it, let me say it slower. What could cause the fire? Meaning the fire hasn't really happened as yet, right? So they refer to this as a cause and effect diagram. Some people think of it like that, cause and effect, or cause and consequence, right? Cause is on the left-hand side, consequence is on the right-hand side, or the effects, right? But in the causes stage, just like what we're doing, remember all of these advanced RA techniques, right? In the causes stages, it has not really happened as yet. So that's why they say this side is positive. The right-hand side, what they do though, they consider, what if you have a fire, right? What could happen if you have a fire? So on the right-hand side, it's kind of too late, but they are considering what if we have a fire? What could we do to get it, like under control then, right? So let's go to the left-hand side and we want to get two causes of the fire. So I'll get one and you will give me one. Let's say this is just a normal, well, I mean, just a normal, I was going to say tank fire or office fire, right? But I guess if it's a tank fire, it wouldn't be too normal anyway, right? So we could stick to like an office fire, right? So if it's an office fire, what could be a cause of an office fire?
Electricity.
Right. So whatever it could be, I'll just put a faulty wire. I'll just put the electrical there, right? It's like a faulty electrical, right? Please remember, again, just like the normal RAs, this has not really happened, is it? This is what could cause a fire. Faulty electrical, right? So faulty electrical, I think I can write on this one, right? But on the left-hand side, it's not that has really happened, right? Another one, I'll give you one here, which is like a worker smoking. So smoking probably next to a barrel of diesel or something, some sort of fuel, right? So smoking, right? And those are the causes of the fire. But at the left-hand side, they say what if or what could cause a fire, right? Somebody smoking, right? Now, watch the slide I have, right? As you watch the slide, what you'll notice is that the lines have something on them, like shallow gas. If you track this, it has something on it. Well kicked, it has something on the line. There's something on the line, right? Low circulation, there's something on the line. Gas cut, mud, there's something on the line, right? Likewise, on this side, there's something on the line. So those things on the line that you're seeing, those are the controls. Those are what they call the barriers. Kind of like the Swiss cheese model where the holes have to line up. This here is a barrier. Like this is preventing the electrical fire then, or the electrical from causing a fire. The only thing that we had to figure out what is the barrier. For example, well, I'll give you one. One of the barriers, if you said faulty electrical could have led to a fire, then one of these barriers is proper inspection. So if the tools is properly inspected by a certified electrician or the wiring in the building, or whatever it was, right? Because we're just kind of talking about this, right? Whatever it was, if it was inspected and certified, well, then it should not have had an electrical fire. Think you get it a bit? Another barrier, Sally smoking for y'all, another barrier for electricity could have probably been like maybe a step-down transformer, if you all know what that is, like a GFCI, if you know what a GFCI is, right? A ground fault circuit interrupter or earthing devices, or RCD, they call it in the UK. I just put here GFCI, a ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI, right? So again, it all depends on what we are talking about. If it's a building or a breaker, so you're making sure that the breaker and stuff is of adequate amperage then, right? And even if there is a fault, there is something there to break the current and send it back to earth, right? This is GFCI. This is supposed to be I at the end here, right? So you understand? So the more barriers you have, the line wouldn't be continuous, as we are seeing here. So the line is broken, right? So I had to erase mine, but I'm not going to erase it because I'll take up the whole diagram, right? But the more barriers you put, like the barriers then is what the team considers. So like we could consider it like electricity could be a cause of fire, but if you have proper inspection and we have like, like a breaker or a reduced transformer, whatever you know it as, a ground fault circuit interrupter, then we'll never have a fire from electricity, because unless if you have a lightning strike, right? But then you can put things in place to prevent a lightning strike as well, like a lightning rod, right? So you understand how positive this side of the bow tie is, right? So tell me how we can prevent the worker from smoking. That'll be one of the barriers. And tell me another way to prevent the worker from smoking.
Policies.
Right, I'll just put P there, right? So like a no smoking policy was another way to prevent a worker from smoking.
Fines and supervision.
Supervision, very good. Okay, signs and supervision. And the more you put, the better. Just put an S there. If you do have more space than me and you have the accuracy with your, because Zoom is not really a writing pen, right? You can write on the full word, like a no smoking policy, very good. A proper supervision, very good, right? So you understand the barriers is like the Swiss cheese again. When the holes are not lining up, the barriers is going to interfere with that line and prevent smoking from being a cause of fire. In reality, then, if we have designated smoking areas, we have a no smoking policy, workers are being supervised, maybe we have CCTV footage, video where we could monitor them, then in that sense, then, right, then no one should be smoking in the company. If you want to, maybe we have designated areas. A very good there, Quincy. Very good there, Kamini, as well for the answers, right? Okay, so on the right-hand side, now you all know I'm overdoing it, right? Because remember, you're not really getting to draw a bow tie. But the way I teach is that you could actually go and do a bow tie. Or when you reach level 6 and we teaching bow tie, you don't know that already, right? So on the right-hand side now, what they consider, well, yes, what if we have a fire, right? So on the right-hand side, it's the consequences. Watch down here. On the left-hand side was, what was the causes of the fire? Are we trying to stop it? So it's proactive, it's positive. But on the right-hand side, we consider, well, yes, the fire happened, the building on fire, right? So we talk about the consequences. What about property damage? So you're putting that here. It's the consequences, right? But you're still trying to lessen the barriers, then we're kind of lessen the damage that you're talking about. But on the right-hand side, it's reactive. So property damage, if you want to get right to that word. And on this side, I'll put consequence of a fire could be injuries. I don't want to put that, right? I put in injuries here, right? So serious burns, right? So I'm not too sure if you get any idea, like a bow tie. I like them because they serve as a good plan then. I don't know if you catch what I mean by that. They serve as a good plan. So like if you want to be proactive, fine. But when I mean a good plan, it serves like an emergency plan too then. Like if we did have a fire, the company would not be left pulling out here from their head, thinking about, well, we didn't really think about fire. We didn't really think about property damage. Yeah, you thought about it and you thought about how to control it. So the way to control it, I'm gonna put a barrier here. You probably want to put like sprinkler systems or fire extinguishers, right? So you consider what if you have a fire? You put in here fire extinguishers or put FE, sprinkler systems. A good barrier that you want here in the event of a fire is insurance. Yes, you want insurance. And the company, you're thinking about on the left-hand side, what if we have an electrical fire? But we're trying to stop it, right? So we stop it. We have inspections, GFCI, circuit breakers, whatever have you, right? That will trip. But we still consider, what if we have a fire? How are we going to deal with that? Right? So you have insurance. So if there's a fire, well then relax. Right? We try our best, we try their best, inspections, whatever, but there is a fire. Life happens, right? But you have insurance. So the barrier for that property damage is insurance. Think you understand that? And some people make more money on the insurance than they did on the fire. I'm sure you all know that. I know, anyway, I shouldn't say those things in Trinidad, but it have business people who like they don't mind a fire. Like you all know that I know people get rich out of insurance and right? You all know anybody like that? It wasn't Ian Allen, so that's what I tell you I know. And not like if I really know them, right? But I saw it have some businesses that go up in flames, but they take out millions of dollars as like in insurance, right? So shouldn't say those things on air. Whatever you do to have your fire, you pay 2 fire officers to say it was an electrical fire. That's what they do. You
Don't
see,
worry,
if you
sir. For
say,
most big businesses in Guyana, when they go up
Yeah.
in flames, it's always electrical. So don't worry.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
all
same here.
electrical. That's what I'm telling you. How come it's all electrical? Right? I know of a building that went up in flames, and I know the worker that set the fire. And the official report, because the worker came and told me, it wasn't really, he didn't really mean that from what he said, right? He didn't really mean to set the building on fire, but he was burning some paper. He was burning a letter he got from his loved one or his ex-loved one. And he threw it in a plastic dustbin. And the plastic dustbin caught on fire, which caught on other fires. And a building fire, if you ever seen it, it's like a wave. That's the only way to describe it. If you go into the sea and you see like a wave coming to you, once a building is on fire, you see it like a wave. If you're in it and you see the ceiling and stuff, it's like a wave, right? A wave of flame. Fire is Alive. There's actually a movie on that. I can't remember the name of it, right? But there's a movie on, I think Kurt Russell or something was it, but Fire is actually alive, right? Anyway, long story short, the man admitted to me that he did that. And the official report was it was electrical. You just had to pay the fire officers a couple, thousands, I guess. I mean, probably not even so much. You see, if you say it's arson, you will get no money, right? So if you just say it's electrical, everybody gets money. The fire officers get money, the company get money to replace, right? And they get more money than what you really, that building was actually worth. Anyway, long story short, please don't do that, right? I just saying insurance is a way to recuperate from a fire, right? If you have property damage, right? Let's talk about the injury. So for the injury, they will consider what if Frank gets burnt. So they may have to have like workman compensation that will be set up, right? They'll have like workman comp, yes, that's insurance to workman compensation, public liabilities insurance that if somebody is damaged, the money is not coming from your pocket, but it's coming from an insurance company, right? They may have to consider here they may have to have a replacement staff, right? If somebody was damaged, they may have to have like somebody on call, right? But all of these is the barriers then to deal with the consequences of a fire. Perhaps they may have to have, and that may come here, probably they may have to have another location, right? Companies do consider that. What if what if the building in, God forbid, goes up on fire, right? Like, could you still operate? Could you sell your product from an off-site location? Can you conduct your service for your clients from an off-site location, right? So this is what it's called. As I said, a bow tie leads to good planning, like contingency planning. Think you understand it a bit? It leads to good planning. Anyway, after all of me overdoing it, your question is, the most common question is like, which of the technique considers causes and consequences? Which one is both proactive and reactive? And I get the four answers again. Of course, in order for me to tell you, we had to do it so that you see the left-hand side considers what if we have a fire and you try to prevent it. The right-hand side considers we have a fire. Well, how do we deal with the effects of that now? How do we deal with the injury? We have to have insurance. We have to have probably a trained first aider. How do we deal with the property damage? Is it that we're going to have another off-site location? Could we operate remotely from home? Yeah, right? Could we have insurance at the building in case the building goes up that we will stand to benefit from of course that's a negative event, but at least the company would not go out of business then because of the fire, right? So I had to go through that though, just to give you the answer. Otherwise, if I just tell you about is positive and reactive, you won't understand what it is I was trying to say. Nor would you even understand. And yes, you want to pass the exam, but greater than that is the knowledge, isn't it? I mean, you don't want to pass and not know what the knowledge basin is all about, right? So see if you could remember that again. I was saying the passive question is something simple. Which of the following, techniques look at the causes and consequences? Which one is proactive and reactive and consider the barriers to those events? The answer is going to be both. It may have a question here. Let's see if we can get it. Right? Tell me what you think. Tell me if you have any questions. Tell me if you understand it a bit. And I like them because I use them a lot for training right? In reality, you are not getting to draw one unless if you decide to share one with your company. This is a nice thing for your company to talk about, right? A nice thing, or call me to train some of your workers. We spend 4 hours and do a Bowtie analysis and show them how to get it done, right? That's actually not a joke. Eh? Tomorrow I'm actually out doing some manual handling training and some firewatch training for a company, right? So yeah, Hazops, I know D Salcott had used me for Hazops, a company in Trinidad, right? Had used me for some training for Hazops study alone. They wanted their workers training Hazops alone, right? See if you have any questions, folks. I'm about to take it off. Say if you're okay, say if you're okay with it. So we have covered Hazops. We have some more techniques to go at the end of today. Today classes are kind of technical class. You understand why this is level 4 now? You understand how this is not a repeat of level 3? You understand how I said level 4 is like the next shoes in your foot? Level 3 will take you to the 5x5 matrix and leave you there, but level 4 tells you there's more to it. Level 6 though, right? There's not really much difference in the degree. The only thing was not a multiple choice exam, but it's the same learning. Like you may actually have to draw a bow tie, right? You might have to construct a hazard, but it's not new there. In other words, GDPCA would always be GDPCA, even for a master's degree, right? The bow tie would always be the same thing, causes and consequence, right? Left hand side, right hand side. But you may have to just draw one for a BSc or a MSc program. But the knowledge is the same. It's just how they examine it. What do y'all think? Right, but nobody has said nothing, start taking it off, right? Let me see if I can get another 2 done. It's actually just 2 minutes past 2. Let me see if I have a question first. If I have a question hiding somewhere. We did that one last week already. Right, so I guess I'll go back. But they they want to mention like the most common one is which one uses active and reactive barriers, right? It's going to be bow tie, which is both causes and consequences. All of those are possible questions, right? Let me just pause and look at the book a bit. Right, so this is the one in your book. You can see it too good there. Right, so you can't really miss it, right? Consequences is big here on this side. This is the right-hand side, consequences, right? About the same thing, the diagram is actually just there anyway, right? So the one we did was kind of more real as considered something for, I don't know if you could have seen that because it's actually blocking my view, right? But it's nothing really here than blank columns anyway, right? Let's go to the other one then. The other one here, or the other big one, should I say. So would be, I mean, there are 2 more to do, right? There's ETA and there's FMEA. FMEA isn't that big, right? But we have to do it still, right? So let's say we can look at the ETA first, and we're going to squeeze in the FMEA coming to the end of the next 25 minutes, right? So I'm reading first. So event tree analysis is based on binary logic. Event tree analysis provides an inductive approach to reliability assessment as they are constructed using forward logic. I'll show you what I mean by that just now, right? An ETA is a graphical representation of a logic model that identifies and quantifies the possible outcomes following an initiating event. Okay, so in a way, then what that means is that an ETA is kind of reactive, right? It isn't proactive like the hazard. The hazard was what if the temperature goes up? What if the flow rate wasn't the same? But an ETA, they say following an initiating event, like following a fire or following a spill, So an ETA is a look at the causes of that spill to prevent it from happening again. But in a way, the spill had to happen first, right? As the number of events increases, the pittier fans out of the branches of a tree. I'll show you what that is just now, right? The starting point of the ETA is referred to as the initiating event. That is what you're trying to prevent, right? The initiating event is like a chemical spill, fire, what again? A valve blew out, whatever you're trying to prevent, right? Is the initiating event. The event tree displays the sequence of events involving success and failure of the control system components. I think that word is missing there. But this is actually from, from set notes anyway, right? But I think a better thing to say is that the event tree displays a sequence of events following success and failure of the controls that you have in place, right? I'll explain that to you in a bit. But if you want to explain now, like in the event of a fire, then the controls would be like the fire extinguisher, the sprinkler system, a suppressant system, an alarm. So those are the controls you have in place. So what an ETA looks at, did those systems work there? And last week when we looked at this, I told you this was the most accurate risk assessment. And anybody can remember what I said about the ETA? What type of thing does it use? Anybody remember I had drawn an illustration to an airplane. And we had said the airplane, if the airplane goes down, God forbid, they will try to retrieve the black box to see what happened. But if you really analyze what I said in that statement, then the plane had to go down. In that way, then an ETA is not really proactive. An airplane would have had to crash. A tank would have had to have a spill. A fire would have had to happen for you to do an ETA study. Think you understand that? Hazops are proactive, ETAs are reactive, but just like accident investigations, you investigate to see what has happened to prevent it happening again. But the thing is, somebody would have had to fall then. Somebody had to step and fall for you to know, okay, well, the boots need to change, right? Or the place had moss, but somebody had to fall. But we learned from that to prevent it from happening. So in a way, it is preventing an accident. The only thing is that something have to happen first, right? So unlike a hazard, which is proactive, an ETA relies on the accident data. A fire has to happen. Then for you to examine how fast did the sprinkler alarm go off, right? How fast is it the suppressant was released? God forbid, the airplane has to crash in order for you to figure out what has happened to the black box, what happened in the accident, right? And last week I said that what they do, they bring this study down to like the decimal points, right? So I want to try a couple of them here. Remember, this is a quantitative study. This is like the best form of risk assessment you have after an accident, right? So we'll use the same diagram. By the way, folks, if you don't have your book, this diagram is better than the one in the book. The one in the book, right? For all who complaining, right? The one in the book, you'll still have to come back to this one, right? So remember I told you all which came first, the chicken or the egg? I'm not too sure for that question, which came first, the chicken or the egg. But I know which came first for NEBOSH was that this is the diagram they have of an ETA in the textbook. That's not really an ETA. That is not an ETA. This is an ETA. That's a real ETA that you're looking at there, right? So just to show you something, I was telling you all that ETA is mathematical. And it is a look at, just try to look at this a bit, right? So we have a fire, and an ETA is a look at what could control the fire, sprinkler system, call to fire department, etc. If you have a tank, but what could prevent a tank from overflowing, right? You have the shutter valve. You may have a manual valve. If you have a remote operated shutter valve, you may have a sensor. right? So up here would have been like a shutter valve, a manual valve. A manual valve could be first, right? Then a shutter valve, a remote, like a shutter level, and like a level where the tank reaches a certain height, the fluid stop, kind of like your water tanks, right? And they could also have like an alarm, a high level alarm that starts to make noise if the tank is filling too much, right? So that's what would prevent the overflow, right? That's if we're looking at a tank. We're looking at fire here, right? If you notice, right? So when they say they put your fans out like a tree, I'm gonna try to draw one here. You can follow me with this one. We'll still stick to fire, right? We're sticking to what they have there, fire, right? And what it is, an event tree is like a family tree. Don't know if you can see that, but they're drawing it sideways. It is like a sideways or a horizontal family tree. See if you're seeing that, because if you had drawn this the other way, if you had turned it then, it would look like a family tree, right? So an event tree is like a horizontal family tree. And every branch, this is referred to as a branch of the tree. Even if it was a family tree, they call it a branch as well. Every branch represents a control for the fire. Therefore, if you look here, you see two controls. So you're seeing one branch here and you're seeing another branch here, right? So this is a branch, right? Every branch of the fire. So let's go with the same thing. I'm going to put back sprinkler system. So there's a branch for sprinkler system. And here, if you want to put another control to prevent a fire, you put another branch. Let's go to the same thing. But here what? I'm going to put a sensor. I put in an alarm, A for an alarm, right? So there's a sprinkler, but it should have probably been alarm first, isn't it? But what do you all think? I mean, we could change it. Tell me what you think. And the alarm's supposed to be first, right? And then the sprinkler going off. So I'll change it, right? So in the event of a fire, the smoke detectors then will go off. The alarm goes off. Then sprinkler system is activated. What do you think could be another branch of that tree then? So you see how they say they put your fans out like a tree? Every branch you put fans
A,
out
fi
then like a sideways fan. Like what else could be? So we have an alarm,
a
we have
fire
spring.
suppression system.
Very good, right? I'll put your fire suppression system, and the more controls you put then, the more branches you put. Right? This is fire suppressor. I put an FS for this one, right? So here it is, right? Here it is. Here it is, right? From now till you finish, like if you're going on to do the degree, they only give you 3 branches. The examiners don't give you more than 3 branches. This is if you actually was constructing a ETA. You don't ever get more than 3 branches. They only give you 3 branches anyway. That's just a level 4 is excellent, like excellent, foundation for the level 6. And a couple of you all here. In fact, I have about 4 people here sign up for the level 6 program. I don't know if they're all here. And I'm not going to call any either. But a good bit of you all sign up for the level 6 program. In September, we're full right now, right? We have to wait until September is exam. Some of the current batches of students will leave us, right? We only have space for 10 people. Every intake, it happens twice for the year, we only have space for 10 people, right? We try to give those seats to our students. However, if our students, then we give it to the outside students, like from Costa, Cipriani, etc. But we try to give our students first. Right now, my list is 7, right? I have not advertised, nor will I advertise. From now till September, I will get the other 3, right? Anyway, so tell me if you're okay with this. Tell me if you're okay so far. Like an ETA considers how effective the control measures were in place if you have a negative event, such as a fire or whatever, spill, explosion, whatever, right? How many controls you have is represented by a branch. Every branch you draw is a different control. The first branch is an alarm, second branch, sensor, the third branch, a fire suppressing system, right? So let's have a closer look at it now. So when you draw it like this, you'll realize I can have a top and it have a bottom. See if you've seen it. It have a top of the branch and it have like a bottom of the branch. Yes? Yeah? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the top of the branch signifies success. Now, what does success mean? You're seeing it here, right? Now, you have to, like I said, this is a question. Like a question could be which of the techniques consider success and failure. There's only one technique that does that, which is the ETA, right? So the top of the branch signifies that these things work and the fire was arrested then. But not really arrested. The fire was suppressed. The fire was brought under control, right? So in the event of a fire, the alarm went off, the sensor went off, the fire suppressant came down and it extinguished the fire, right? So the top of the branch signifies success. The bottom of the branch, if you watch here, signifies failure. You'll see it here, success, failure, success, failure, success, failure, right? So remember, if I just tell you an ETA consider success and failure, you wouldn't understand. So we have to do the thing. We have to do it as if we're really getting to do one, right? Right. So what you're not seeing in this chart, what if I have it in the other chart? Well, you're not really supposed to know that anyway, right? But I can tell you still, right? What you're not seeing is that it have numbers with it. Remember, we said that last week. The numbers are decimal places. That's how accurate this thing is, right? So in the event of a question, please take note. In the event of a question, NEBOSH will give you the numbers, right? So the success rate at which the alarm goes off, they'll give you it. I just saying 0.9 here. Please, 0.9 is too long. This would be like seconds. So 0.01 seconds. I just give 0.01. Please take it down as well. So that's the accuracy, right? So in the event of a question, NEBOSH will give you the figures. They do that for the degree students. So you don't have to dream up the figures. NEBOSH will give you the figures, right? How long did it take for the alarm to go off? 0.01 second. How long did it take for the sensor to go off? Probably 0.011 second, because these things go off very fast, right? I'll put 0.02 here just to make it a different figure. And then how fast did the sprinkler system go off? 0.03 seconds, right? They'll give you this. Even if you're doing the degree, they give you. The only time you wouldn't get it is if you're working for a company. You will have to examine. This is why they want the black box. So you'll have to examine at what time did the engine fail, and the black box would have the data on it. So they could take the data, the time may have been, recorded on it. It was 11:01, and then the recording stopped 11:01.1 or something, right? So you minus 11:01.1 from 11:01 and end up with 0.1. That's how they get these things. But in reality, it's different than if you get it for an exam question. For an exam question, they'll give you the success figures, right? The alarm 0.01, the sensor 0.02, the fire suppressant 0.03. Tell me if you understand that. And the most they can do for exam now in level 4 is to ask you what is the overall success figure. What is the overall success figure? And what you have to do, you have to add them up. So even if it's multiple choice, I feel like I could do this. Yeah, you just have to add them up, simple maths. So you add up 0.03 to 0.02, that's 0.05, and then this one 0.01. So the success figure then, or the overall success figure at which all those systems work, is 0.06 seconds. Tell me if you understand that, and tell me if you understand that that's not a hard question if NEBOSH give you. I can see that as a question. You just add up all the figures to the top. In short, add all the figures on top. Right? No big
So
set of maths.
in general, does it have a tolerance range it work with? Or?
Yeah, the number, yeah, the tolerance is 1. Remember last week, right? We said And ETA uses binary logic. And I think I remember telling you the movie Matrix, when the movie Matrix starts, you see zeros and ones. So the highest will be 1. So 1 is like the highest. So 1 is the tolerance, the number 1. Notice all these figures are less than 1. 0.01 is less than 1. 0.02 is less than 1. You're not supposed to get more than 1. 1 is like the tolerance. 1 is where you cannot cross. Right? So 0.06, this is within range. This means that everything would, in other words, 1 second then is too low. If you want to think of it like that for now, right? But let me move over the math a bit, right? Because it's getting late. Is that the time? Jesus Christ. And all his disciples. Right, okay. Excepting Judas. Yeah. To get the failure figure, I don't think they will give you that, right? I feel that's too much of maths. That's so level 6. To get the F figure, you have to minus 1. It'll be 1 minus the top figure. Right? To get the failure figure is 1 minus the top number. What do I mean by top number? You can trace this branch. So the rain falling kind of hard, right? I know Zoom have what do you call it, a buffer, because you all don't hear the noise, but I hear it. So if you find me shouting, wonder why this man shouting, right? It's because I can't hear myself. But you all don't hear the noise on Zoom, right? You all don't hear the rain falling. So I try to talk my normal pace then. It's just that it's I'll show you outside. San Fernando. It's not. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually upstairs. Like if you're downstairs, you don't really hear it. But you know, when you're upstairs, there's a lot, right? Yeah, anyway. So to get the failure figure is 1 minus the top number. So if you trace this branch, you can actually trace it, right? At the degree level, we call it the tracing method. So you can actually trace this branch. You're tracing it, and when you're going up, the top figure here is 0.01. So to get the failure figure is 1 minus 0.01, right? Which is actually 0.09, I think, right? 0.01. 1 minus 0.01 is going to give you 0.0. Is it 99? I could check it. I'm going to check it on my Yeah, I used to teach maths 10. Well, no, that's not true. It really is now. I used to teach maths, but more than a decade now. So people just watch me now and laugh. They say, but and you used to teach maths? I say, yeah, but that's really is now, right? It's more than a decade now, more than within probably 20 years now, right? What is it if anybody calculated 1 minus, sorry, I put 11, right? Was 1 minus 0.01? That's shameful, huh? People who know me. Okay, 0.099. So my mistake. I told him something felt kind of wrong, right? So 0.099. But that's how you get the failure figure. Now, what's the failure figure? The failure figure is the fact that what the failure figure mean is that the fire happened and the alarm did not go off. That's like why I tell you they want the black box then. That's why they just want to retrieve the black box from an aircraft crash, right? They want to figure out what did not happen. Think you understand it a bit? So this one here, to get this failure figure is 1 minus 0.02. 1 minus 0.02. I don't think they're going to go in this level of maths. But this is actually creating a point for you all. The point is, remember I said last week, the ETA is very accurate, right? The ETA is very accurate. And what makes it so accurate is the fact that it is highly mathematical. It's not like the number 5 by 4, right? It is actually, like digits or decimal places that you get. And so this here will be what? Anybody knows this one? I think I just saw a lightning strike. 0.98 will be this one. So that means, what does it mean? It means in the event of a fire, the alarm did not go off, and the what we had here, the sensor did not go off either. Therefore, if we can calculate this one too, and we say the fire suppressant here, I don't know if you're hearing the thunder, right? A fire suppressant system did not release and the building burned down. But we could learn from that, and that's the purpose of the ETA study, right? Folks, I'm going to try to bring this one down to the end. I'm going to try to relate some past papers here for you all. So a question out of this I told you all is, which is the best technique? Well, after all the maths, you probably would see that this is the best technique because it is highly mathematical. You could also see that the ETA examines the success and failure of the control measures you have in place to prevent a negative event. It's falling harder now, right? So in the 4 minutes I have, I think I'd email you this past paper, right? In the week. Well, when you first joined, I think, when you first came in, I think I emailed you a past paper, right? What we could do, we could try to just zone them and see if we see any questions on that. Right? Like number 7, number 8. Number 7, right? Which form of risk assessment is most appropriate when the risk is potentially intolerable? What do you think is the answer for this one? Okay. Which form of risk assessment is most appropriate? We did this one last week, so we shouldn't stick too long with this one. Which form of risk assessment is most appropriate? Number 7, when the risk is potentially intolerable. Is it semi-quantitative, qualitative, dynamic, or quantitative? What do you think is the answer for this one? Or have you all fallen asleep?
Quantitative.
Quantitative, right? D. Okay, I'm going to see if I see anything on Hazops and stuff, right? Going down. If you all want, if you have this paper, you all can give it a try. I see nothing too much. Okay, look at another question on Bowtie there, number 24. Right? Number 24. Bowtie, if you're not talking loud again, it's because of the radio. Bowtie is a risk management tool that identifies A, barriers to change, B, prevention barriers only, C, mitigation barriers only, D, prevention and mitigation barriers. Mitigation means control, right? Prevention and mitigation barriers.
Prevention and mitigation barriers.
Right. You could probably, so I guess you're saying D, but I can't, like the baffle and Zoom doesn't work the other way. I think you all can hear me, but I can't hear you all, right? So the answer is D. D for this one. Let me see if I get one more. Anything on Hazops? Anything else? I know we can do way much more than that, right? But I kind of try and just see. If not, it's just how the questions came anyway, right? So that's it. I didn't see anything, but in the book may have 1 or 2 in them. We end up every chapter. We end up chapter 2 has some questions. We're just trying to look and see if I see them. Doesn't mean it didn't have one on Hazops, but just trying to guess here. Right, and it's exactly 2:13. Right, the one in the book is the same one on the slide. The one in the book is the same one we had. If I go back to the slide, the one on the book is the same one here. Yeah, it had one on the slide. We did it last week. This question here is the same question in the book. That question. The answer was at the ETA, right? I struggle to hear you saying present and absent. Well, but, all right, let me stop the recording. I'll take the roll.